I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right. Welcome all my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts to the Let's Get Growing show here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host. And today we've got a great show. It's the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show. It's also the third Sunday of the month. That's right. It's the third Sunday of the month. That means it is book club time. That's right. We've got our good friend, Mr. MBC, Mark Boucher Colbert, joining with us here in just a few minutes for a live in the garden segment coming up. And as well, too, he is here to stick around and be our co-host for a great conversation with Charlie Nardozzi coming up just a little bit later on the show here. We're going to talk all about his new book, The Continuous Vegetable Garden. Yeah, really great book. I got mine all marked up, ready to go. But we'll have Charlie here on the show in just a little bit here to talk about this great book. And if you can, everybody, let's go ahead and get this all done with here right at the top of the show. You know the drill. Let's hit that thumbs up. Hit the like button as well as subscribe, bell notification so you can be notified of all of our upcoming live streams here on the Let's Get Growing show. And definitely share with all of your garden friends out there and let them know about the Let's Get Growing show. All these amazing, cool guests and gardeners we get to talk to and hang out with each and every weekend. That's right. We're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And that's around, I think, 7 p.m. at this time of year for all of you over in the UK, Greenwich Mean Time and all of that. So again, thank you everybody for joining with us here today. Big, huge shout out to all of you who are watching the replay too. Thank you, Team Replay, for being here. It's great to have you along with us as well too. So thank you for joining us on your time. And if you can, go ahead and drop into that comment section down below here and let us know you're here. Let us know what you got growing on. Let us know where you're growing from, what you got growing in your garden this year. How's it doing? Are you harvesting lots of great things out of your garden? Drop into that comment section below. Let me know how things are growing on. Or, like I always say, just drop on and say hi too. I'd love to hear from all of you there in the comment section. And if you are joining with us live today, definitely drop into the conversation there in the chat with everybody there. Let us know again too. Roll call coming up. So let us know where you're growing from, what you got growing on, all those things I just asked of all of our replay watchers. If you're here live, drop into the chat there and let us know all of that. We've got roll call coming up in just a couple of minutes here. We'll give all of you a big, huge shout out for joining with us here today. Questions. If you got questions for our guest coming up here just a little bit later on, definitely drop those into the chat as well. And comments and all of that. We just might feature them on the show. We'll be putting those along the bottom of the screen. And we might just ask one of your questions to our guest. So definitely love to see those in the chat. And again, everybody, thank you so much to those of you over the last few weeks who have been dropping into our description below. We've got links to Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, and those sort of sites for you to be able to come and do a direct donation to the show. We really appreciate all that you can do to help out our show when it comes time to paying all of our bills and doing some really great things. We've got some cool plans and ideas for the show coming up throughout the rest of the season and into next season as well too. So again, I really appreciate all that you all do to help contribute to the show. Even all the great free stuff that I just mentioned too, you know, the liking, commenting, subscribing, doing all of that sort of stuff as well. And got links down below to our guests. You can get a copy of Charlie's book, the continuous vegetable garden. You can go check out Charlie at his website, all of that as well. So follow those links to that. We've got Mark with us today. We got links to his Instagram and stuff to follow along with what he's growing on throughout the growing season. So definitely go and support our guests and contributors here to the show. It's always a great way to help support our show. So thank you for doing that. And like I said, go and check out one of their posts or something like that. Let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. So right on, everybody. Thank you so much again for being here. It's always great to get into this seat and to come hang out with all of you each and every weekend here on the show, and then get to have these really great conversations with everybody. So again, hopefully you all have been enjoying the most recent shows that we've been doing. Have you been following along with us? Did you check out yesterday's show? Were you here with us live? Or if you haven't, go check it out. We had our good friend, Mr. Scott Wilson, Gardener Scott, joining with us on the show yesterday to answer all of your gardening questions. Yeah, he's usually here on the second Sunday of the month. We missed him last Sunday, but he came and joined with us yesterday for our Saturday show. We had a really great time hanging out with him and our good friend, always in the chat with us each and every weekend, always joining with us on our community shows. We had Will with us from Big Will Dog in the Soil. It was great to have him on the show with us and officially on the show with us and have a great conversation and get to know just a little bit more about our good friend Will. So if you didn't get a chance to check out those conversations, definitely drop into our show page and go check out yesterday's show. And we also had some great shows this last weekend as well, too. We had last Saturday, we had Nick Gasumpus from Farmer Nick joining with us. Nick's got some great origin stories and how he got started gardening and growing and all of that. It was just a really fun conversation. We talked with him a little bit about his book, The Plant Coach, and we also got to meet Jan from The Alchemy of Gardening. Really great channel, really great gardener, awesome conversation. Again, go back and check that out if you didn't get a chance to check out that show. And like I mentioned, Gardener Scott wasn't with us last Sunday on the Sunday edition of the show, but we had a great fill-in. That's right, we had a special guest. We had Greg LaHoulier, author of the book Epic Tomatoes. Yes, he joined us for a little bit of what we're calling tomato talk. And just like having him on the show before, we've had him a couple of times on the show. And you guys just love tomatoes. We all love tomatoes. It's one of our first loves in the garden when it comes down to it. And the tomato questions were overflowing on last Sunday's show. So again, we're going to have Craig back again. We're thinking about maybe trying to get him to come back a little more regular so we can have some regular tomato talk here on the show. We'll be working that out and hopefully have him back on so we can continue answering all of those just amazing tomato questions. Again, we start talking that subject of tomatoes and that just gets everybody going. So hopefully we'll get him back on the show again. It was a really great talk. So go back and check out last Sunday's show if you didn't get a chance to see that show, and then as well to check out some of the links in that show too, because that'll have links to Craig LaHoulier too, and you can go and get a hold of him. He was talking about that on the show, and maybe get in on one of his tomato trials that he's doing, or if you've got a tomato question you're dealing with that you need in a more immediate type of answer, you can definitely go and reach out to him, and he'd be perfectly willing to help you out for sure. So right on, everybody. Again, thank you all so much for being here. I hope everything's growing awesomely out in your gardens. And like I've been saying over the last few weeks, things have been growing just spectacularly great. Mark and I, just before the show was getting started, we're talking a bit about, the weather and climate and tomatoes. And I think, really, I'm just loving this season when it comes to tomatoes. My expectations are pretty low after many, many seasons of just this ultra high heat that we've been getting here in the Rogue Valley in Southern Oregon. And we got a bit of a cooler summer. I know some of you are dealing with records and all that sort of stuff, and it's really hot where you're at. But for me and us here in Oregon, for some reason, we're getting it's a little cooler than what we're actually used to. So our tomato plants have been loving it. I'm telling you, my plants are stocked, full, loaded, and they're ripening, and we're pulling them off like crazy right now with tons more to come. The plants are still putting out tons of flowers. We've got plenty more to even look forward to. So this is probably going to go down to one of the best tomato seasons that we've had in several years around here. So I'm really, really loving that, as well as like most everything else as well too. We got lots of great things growing out there. And as I mentioned, low expectations, right? I didn't really start this garden with high expectations. We were just kind of throwing some things out there, letting a bunch of volunteers. We got lots of different volunteer plants out there that are just kind of growing and doing their thing. And ultimately, without having a huge expectations for a garden this year, I've got one of the best gardens I've had in a long time, which is really kind of great, how all of that works out and everything too. So again, I hope all of you are having just as a great time in your gardens. I hope everything's growing just fantastically for you out in your garden spaces. So, all right. Have y'all been jumping into the chat there? Yes, that's right. Again, too, roll call. We got this coming up here. Where are you growing from? What's growing on in your garden? All right. Let's get it started.
My name is Kevin.
Yeah.
That is my name.
Yeah.
They call me Kevin.
Yeah.
Because that's my name.
Roll call.
All right, roll call time. This is the part of the show where we get to give you, the audience, a big, huge shout out here. And let's see who we've got joining with us today. And of course, we want to start off our roll call with a big, huge shout out to our good friend and chat facilitator, Jay Dixon, the J-Bot, joining us here from Midwestern Ontario, Huron County, in the lee of Lake Huron. Thank you, Jay. Everybody keep an eye out in the chat there for links, further information on subjects that we're talking about, all sorts of great things. Keep an eye out on what Jay's dropping into the chat there. And again, too, I haven't mentioned this for a while as well, too. If you have a small garden channel and you haven't gotten a shout out for a while, let us know about your channel. Let us know what you've got growing on the channel, anything coming up, all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure Jay would love to drop in a link for your channel as well too, so we can give you a little bit of support and get over there and subscribe and check out what you've got growing on. We've got Michael in the chat with us, joining us from Alabama, Zone 8 in the Alabama mountains. Thanks, Michael. It's great to have you here with us. Thanks for joining with us here today. We've got David from Bowtie Life. Triple G, greetings, global gardeners from the Emerald Coast, where the remodel finish line is finally visible. Well, that's good. That's good to know. I know you've been working on that a while. We're just hoping that light at the end of the tunnel isn't a train. No doubt. Absolutely. There's something popping up. I'm sure you got some sort of trains running at you, but it's good to see that the finish line is getting close. And let's see, he says, I'm finishing up at Walmart and heading home. I'll be back in the chat in a little bit. Awesome. So listening in the meantime, have to make sure Willie is behaving and all. Oh, yeah, our good friend Big Will Dog. They were having some fun yesterday on the show, definitely. And excellent. We got Nope joining us here, I believe from Vegas, right? Las Vegas. Meg's Edible Landscapes in the chat as well, too. Great to have you. Thanks for jumping in there. It's great to have you with us on the show. Our other moderator, my good friend, right up from the road here in Southern Oregon, in Central Point. Thanks, Adam, for being here with us today. Great to have you in the chat. And then, of course, there's our guest from yesterday. It's Will from Big Will Dog 82 in the soil. He says, hello, everyone. Glad to be here for another great show today. Yes, and yes, it's great to have you here. It was great to see you yesterday. And as I said, everybody, go back and check out that conversation yesterday with Will. It was really fun. Joe from Muddy Puddles Farm with us here. He says, well, David may be in Walmart, but I'm at home in Cornwall, UK, having spent the afternoon preserving, still waiting for rain. Yeah. Me too. It's summertime. I probably won't be seeing rain still for quite a while, but it would be nice to see some for sure. I'm sure my plants would definitely love it. Dusty Flats, another steamy day and already 87 degrees Fahrenheit and lots to get done today. 87. My steamy though. Boy, that's all right. Let's see here. Oh, 2% in the chat. Oh, wait, we got a question here. Can I grow inside and what lights to use? Oh. Let's see. Wasn't expecting a question. Let's see. Yeah, you can grow inside. Lots of different types of lights, lots of different powers of lights, depending on what you're trying to grow, whether it's going to be needing heavy lights or not. I usually only grow things that are I'll be like growing like some of my starter plants and those sort of things. And I just use some really basic, simple shop lights. I'm converted to LEDs, I think in the last couple of years, to doing some just LED shop lights just to get things growing, to get my starts going. And I'll do a little bit of microgreens during the wintertime. Seems to do plenty well. But if you're growing some other things, you can look into, there are more heavier, high-powered lights out there. Excellent. Awesome. Thank you for the question, though. Thanks for jumping in with us here today. We've got Big Will says, cucumbers are a tricky deal unless growing a compact variety, but if you're able to grow them in some size, then you're likely able to. Okay, so we're talking, full spectrum lights, so you must be answering that question. Okay, I see. All right. Excellent. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't never really tried to grow cucumbers as far as indoors or under lights or anything. Let's see. And Mark's in the conversation as well, too. He's joining us. Yeah, he's on a little trip, doing a little visit. He's in McMinnville, Oregon right now. All right, on. Excellent. We'll have Mark on in just a couple of minutes here with us as well, too. All right. We got Beth. Excellent. Beth in the conversation. Mark's fan club in McMinnville. Awesome. Excellent. I love it when the fan clubs show up. That's awesome. Excellent. Great to have you here. Thanks for joining in with the show. I hope you enjoy our show today. And Nope says, hi, Enoch and everyone. It's Cam. That's right. Cam from Las Vegas. I had Las Vegas right. We've been getting rain, about to up pot some mesquite babies today, and work on the greenhouse. Excellent. That's awesome. And you've been getting rain down in Las Vegas. Well, how about that? That's really awesome. I bet the plants and everything are really, really loving that little bit of rain that you're getting at this time of year. Janet's in the chat as well, too. Hello, Janet. Great to see you. And she says, hello, gardeners, with every sort of edible from Texas Hill Country in Zone 9 and reaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit daily. Oh, yeah. Oh, especially there in Texas. It's got to be really, really warm this time of year. Right on, everybody. Thank you so much, everyone, for jumping in on our roll call segment today. It's great to have you here with us. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for dropping in on the conversation. And if you haven't or if you didn't get in on our roll call today, definitely keep on dropping your comments and your questions for our guest coming up there in our chat, and we'll feature those throughout the show there too as well. So again, thank you everybody for being here. It's really awesome to have you here with us today. We've got a great show for you. In fact, it's again, I keep forgetting, it's Sunday. It's the Sunday edition today. So that means we've got our good friend, Mr. MBC, joining with us live today. So let's get this going. Let's jump on in the garden with our good friend, Mr. MBC. All right. Here he is, as you heard in the chat, joining us from away from home. He's down in McMinnville.
McMinnville, Oregon wine country. Here I am.
Oregon wine country, out there checking out all the great vineyards out there, having a great time.
I'm at my
But
sister-in-law's. That's the McMinnville fan club there. Beth Colbert.
I know, I love it. The fan club's here. Everybody's watching in the other room,
I
hanging
guess
out. It's
I thought
awesome.
they'd be chatting it up and doing something. They're like, we're going out for a walk. Mark's doing his thing, or let's just let him do his thing. But
That's
yes,
right.
they're with me, so that's nice of them.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Excellent. Yeah. So just away from home, away from the garden. So I guess we don't really got you in the garden, right?
Well,
But
luckily,
you're away right now.
I think we were talking about this, the weather just before we got on, is that we've had the cooler weather. So I've only been away for a couple of days from the garden 2 times this summer.
Mhm.
And the first time I went to Rochester to visit my brother, and luckily, so this is late June, so it can be pretty hot. And we've even had the
Yeah.
hottest temperatures we've ever recorded in Portland during the heat dome, like about 5 years ago. Um, that happened in late June. So one gets a little anxious as a gardener. It's like I gotta get away every once in a while and see my family and to do summer things a little bit.
Yeah.
But every time I go away, there's like anxiety and there's work before and after. But the time I went away in June, it rained. Those like 3 out of the 4 days I was gone in Portland. So I'm like,
Uh,
yeah, I'm off the hook there. Everything's good, no
Yes.
problem. And then this weekend going away for a little bit, just like a couple of nights away, but still the sense of like, oh man, how's it going to be? 80s,
Mhm.
low 80s, a gray, cloudy day yesterday. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess nature's helping me out here this year, having more
The
relaxing.
timing's perfect. That's
Yeah,
great.
so I was telling you, it's like Portland often feels like June, even into August. We get these cloudy gray mornings, and that will burn off at between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. somewhere in there. But that's like June weather. This is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, as I was kinda mentioning, and I've been mentioning for, last several weeks is, it's just kinda blowing my mind is here we are in August now, and, we did we had a little bit of a heat wave come about, this last week or so, but it was just quick, it was brief, and, most of this summer has just been, mild compared to, our last many years. I mean, I was
Yeah.
thinking, I was like, "Man, I can go back almost 10 years thinking about like
Mm.
as it's been progressively getting hotter and hotter and hotter here in southern Oregon, and I guess as I was mentioning to you before the show, it's kind of like things are getting hotter and hotter, but on that way up, as it's getting hotter, there are dips, right? And this just seems to be one of those summers that's kind of a dip on its way to a little hotter summers we could be facing down the road as well too. So we got to really just enjoy this
Yes.
time, right?
Yeah, yeah. All next, I'm looking at the forecast next week. It's like a couple of 84-degree days there, but a couple of very low 80s, and even into the high 70s. I'm like, this is just continuing. This is not stopping. This is a perfect weather pattern. Let's just keep it going this way.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at my forecast as well too, and it's going right down into the 80s for next week or two coming up, and I'm just like, oh man, this is perfect. And as I mentioned, man, the tomatoes, the all of the plants out there, my cucumbers are going crazy. The squash are loving it out there. All the gardens just doing fantastic. And again, too, I wasn't planting things with a real high expectations this year. I was just kind of throwing some things out there. I got a busy summer this year. So I was just kind of like, let's just got to put some stuff out there. We'll see what happens. I'll try to help take care of it here and there. And man, it's turning out to be like one of my best garden seasons, which is really kind of crazy to think about.
You know what's weird? When I first came to Portland in '92, that's when I started. I had started my farming journey in New Hampshire, and then I met my wife Janine before we were married, and she was living out here, so I moved out and started gardening here. So I was turning to people like Steve Solomon. He wrote this
Yeah.
great book that's been through multiple editions, Growing Vegetables West of the Cascades, and he's even moved to New Zealand, and he keeps he keeps putting out new editions of this text because it's in such demand. Anyway,
Hmm.
he talked. The pattern was very cool summers, and maybe as many 90-degree days as you could count on two hands. I think we had like there'd be like about 12 90-degree days in the course of a typical Portland summer. And and that was during a warm summer. In the cool summers, the pattern was called a cabbage summer or a cabbage year because things like tomatoes wouldn't ripen. And even I remember the talk of the farmers that I was associated with early on in the early 90s there when we were growing our vegetables. People would be like, it's all about the fried green tomatoes this year. We're not getting any really big ripe ones. And
Yeah.
you'd have to use these, special Russian varieties or European varieties that have been bred for the cold to get teeny little ones maybe in August. Now,
Yeah.
of course, that's completely changed. But this year is a reversion to the cool summer. I think everything is doing well, though, because we had a particularly warm spring. So
Yeah.
everything got over the hump, whereas usually in the Northwest, it's wet and cold up through June. This year we got a big boost in May and
Yeah.
coming in early June. So I think everything got underway nicely, but then it's been more moderate. So it's just interesting to kind of try to ride these waves. And then
Mhm.
also in the course of a lifespan as a gardener, to notice these differences and to know and just like, yeah, there's big shifts happening. I'm living through them. I can remember when it
Yes.
wasn't this way, and it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's us gardeners and growers who are like right in the front lines of these climate change, these differences in seasons and things, because we're just trying to grow through them and have to work through these things, and so we get to see it pretty much firsthand. So
Yeah, and
we know it's like
as the USDA zones change, that's kind of an abstraction. It's like now you're in zone 8, whatever, this or that. But
yeah,
you see it in your plants. You see, like, one of my marker plants was Salvia elegans, a pineapple sage, which is just a tremendously beautiful plant. And I love those thin-necked red flowers that come toward the end of the season. They're a great edible, by the way. They're really delightful. But that thing used to freeze out and die every year when I first started, so it was like, had to treat it like an annual. Then we'd have a couple of years when it's like, oh my God, the sage survived. It was like this year it actually survived, it came back.
yeah,
And now it's like the sage never dies. There's like kind of green leaves on it all through the winter. It just never even dies. So
yeah,
it's again like one you can see in one plant, or we have these various marker plants that we all love. We
yep.
can see those shifts happening right before our eyes.
Yep, yep. And we got a question here too. Meg's Edible Landscapes asks a question for the Oregon growers. Have you noticed different pest disease pressures with a different weather pattern this year? Is that
Mm.
something that you've noticed? Any differences in the usual pests you're dealing with or diseases that come about? Anything kind of a little bit different because of the weather, you think?
Because I don't know, that's hard to say. I know
Yeah.
that there's patterns of insects coming into Oregon that we never used, or at least Western Oregon, that we never used to see. Like I never had problems with squash bugs. Now it's like every year, squash bugs, those
Mm.
nasty little things.
Those
Um,
were the ones I was going to mention though too, because I
yeah.
haven't noticed. I mean, I saw one or two,
Well, this year you're
and
right, it's
that's
a
it.
little less, but I don't
They're
know
not
what to attribute that to. I don't know how
right.
the slightly cooler weather would interrupt that kind of a pest cycle. That to me doesn't.
Yeah.
To me, it would. We had a fairly mild winter also, so that just means like things aren't getting knocked down as much. I don't know,
Mhm.
but I know there's as climate warms up, there's definitely insects moving in, uh,
Yep.
and as just globalization happens, things are just getting more mixed up, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden finding themselves in places where there's no resistance or no pests, no additional predators to control them. So I think
Yeah.
those are the bigger ones.
Yeah, yeah. That and I will say that I've got this black aphid that's getting onto a couple of my different pepper plants that I've
Mm,
never seen before.
mm.
I've had these other ones, all different types of colors of them and this and that, but
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one's like a really small black one, and of course you can see all the ants are coming up, and they're
Oh, yeah.
they're obviously
Farming
farming
it.
these aphids and all of that, but I've never seen this black one before. So I mean, other than that I haven't seen before, I'm not sure necessarily myself exactly what differences based on climate and everything with pests. But I don't even know. I mean, to me, I find it strange though. Getting back to the squash bugs, I mean, I saw one or two of them,
Hmm.
and I got rid of them real quick. And and then I saw a couple of eggs underneath a couple of leaves, which I got rid of real quick. And then and again, doing that in a normal year would never do anything to help them out.
No, oh no, those
That's
things
not
are
even going to
so,
stop them at
those
all.
come at you in waves, and they're just like you can barely like get any squash.
Yeah. So that's what I'm kind of wondering. Is it some of the weather? Is it something else that's happening, going on that I'm not sure of? Because I'm constantly, every single year, getting a ton of that pressure. And I know for a fact that that little bit of work that I did to take care of those few bugs and eggs wasn't going to do the difference to make it to where I really don't see them. They're not pressuring my squash plants very much back there, and that's probably the biggest surprise to me. And I don't know whether or not to contribute it to weather or not, though.
The thing you mentioned at the beginning when we were talking before the show started, though, that seems so weather dependent, which is you're seeing a better fruit set on your tomatoes when you've seen lots of fruit drop or failure to pollinate over the last few years because of the blazing heat. And now you're back to a sense. Jay is anthropomorphizing a squash bug. You know, like it's like, no, I don't like you, squash bug. I mean, in the general sense, I do like creatures. I do know that they're valuable, but I'm sorry, that's one where my animus gets targeted. It's like I will channel my ill will on the squash bug.
Yeah.
You were talking about tomatoes. You know, with the cooler summer that we're getting, you're just seeing lots of tomatoes set where you've been basically like giving up on some of those big tomatoes, right? Over the really hot summer, and producing, they've not been setting fruit.
Yeah. There were times I'm like, do I really give up on this? But again, similar as you were talking about, in the cooler times, you were looking for these other varieties that do better in those. So that's kind of what I've been doing over the last several seasons, is trying to find and discover varieties that will do better in higher heat. And then comes a season like this.
Right. Which is, I guess that's why we want to hedge our bets as gardeners, right? We want to have a lot going. And not only a lot of different plants, but even some different varieties to be kind of constantly testing, right? We have to sort of, it's that kind of Noah's Ark mentality. We got to bring a lot of stuff into the garden and be ready for a lot of different possibilities now. So we're in this turbulent time when the weather patterns and the overall climate, the climate trend may be going in one way, but the weather patterns that year to year are unsettled. So we have to be a little more resilient in that sense, and just be working with different kinds of varieties that could handle this or that. So,
yeah. Well, right on. Well, there we go. What a great start to our show today. A little bit of In the Garden with our good friend, Mr. MBC. He's going to stick around here in just a couple of minutes. We've got our guest, Charlie Nardozzi, and his great book, The Continuous Vegetable Garden, here.
The fun has only begun. It's only just begun. Wait.
The show's just beginning.
Yeah,
Excellent. Yeah, don't go away. We will be right back in just one moment. Oh, there we go. And we'll have our monthly gardening book club.
There we go.
Hello, let's get growing live gardening community. I'm Charles Malky, biologist and co-founder of Ivy Organic brand products. Ivy Organic is based on whitewashing, a time-tested way to protect plants from summer sunburn, winter sun scald, pests, transplant shock, and environmental stresses. Unlike latex or tar-based products that crack, peel, and leave residue on your soil indefinitely, Ivy Organic is truly organic and a healthier alternative. It dries on porous, allowing plants to breathe and heal naturally without rotting. Also ideal for protecting your pruning and grafting wounds. Available in white for maximum reflection, or natural tones like brown, green, gray, and grayish. Ivy Organic protects while blending beautifully with your landscape. Choose from the whitewash oil-free formula or the 3-in-1 plant guard made with natural oils to help repel insects and rodents. Protect your plants the smart, organic way with Ivy Organic. Learn more at ivyorganics.com, and wishing you all happy gardening.
All right, here we are back at it. Just a quick little break there. Big, huge shout out to our sponsor, Ivy Organics. Thank you so much. Great company. Get yourself some of that 3-in-1 plant guard over at ivyorganics.com. Use our promo code GROW10, GROW10, and get 10% off.
I like how I can see you have a little stack of it back there on your shelf in prominent view. So nice work there promoting the sponsor.
That's
it's kind
right.
of penetrating into our subconscious mind. It's like, what is that product? What is that product?
What is it? What is it? Gotta use it. Get some for your garden shed. Everybody's got to have a little bit of the 3-in-1 plant guard. I think it's such a great, awesome product to have. So definitely go and get some of that over at Ivy Organics. And also real quick here, just a little update on what we got coming up this next week. And I didn't get to mention this to you before the show, Mark, but guess who we got coming on the show next Saturday? This is a favorite of both of ours. I bet you can.
Well, I don't know. You talked about Craig. You had Craig last week, so that would be the first guest. Cisco Morris. Yeah,
that's right. We got Cisco on the show next Saturday.
Oh, you got Cisco back. That's crazy.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh man, what is really great is he loves coming on the show. His emails when he emails me back are just always, oh wow, I can't wait. This is gonna be so fun and all of that.
So incredible. Cisco, you guys are gonna bust a gut.
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, I always tell everybody, there's someone with such a passion for gardening. I mentioned this at the beginning of every show, the passionate plant people. And if there's ever a passionate plant person in this world, it is Cisco Morris for sure.
Yes. And a real innovator too, a real innovator in the natural gardening space and the integrated pest management, reduced use of pesticides, vast plant knowledge. I mean, but a humorist at heart, a storyteller and a humorist at heart.
Yeah. We've got to catch him live for a couple of talks before up at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show, and I think we've mentioned this one of the times too. Is like we go to in there for a garden talk, right? We want to learn and get some knowledge about some garden plants, and then we end up at a comedy show. The whole audience is just busting a gut and laughing and rolling around on the floors because this guy is so funny. And it comes from his passion for growing and doing everything, and just brings that humor into it, and just a complete package.
He's a kind of a national treasure, I think, in terms of, and at the very least, a Northwest treasure, because I think
that's right.
He's so well established in the Seattle area. He's on the radio and TV and.
I wish he was more known internationally. That's why I want him on the show. Get people from around the world to see him and hear from him, because he's just such a great guy. We also got another great guy coming on the show today, man. I've been really excited about this for a little while now. So I think it's about time. Let's get going. I know he's waiting in the background here, so let's get going here. It's time for our monthly gardening book club. That's right. It's monthly gardening book club time, and we've got a really, really awesome book for you all this month. This is The Continuous Vegetable Garden by Charlie Nardozzi. And man, what a book, huh?
Incredible book. A little shout out to the Hatchet Publishing Group, because, or I guess that's the folks, they sent us the complimentary copies of this very handsome book. We would have, had to lay out some of our own.
Yeah. You gotta love it when the publishers jump in and help you out.
Wallets to lay out $2 for this book. Very worthwhile, though. I would lay out any amount of money. We're going to talk about why this is such a great book, but it is a great book. But it is also a beautiful and handsome book at the same time.
Oh yeah, and so I love the way it's put together, and we'll talk all about some of the things that it features throughout the book. But again, to link right down below in the description there to get yourself a copy of The Continuous Vegetable Gardener. And we're gonna just jump right into this, Mark. I know we usually do a little pre-thing here, but we've been chatting, and I know Charlie's waiting in the background here. So let's get him on the show with us here. Let me get this set up.
The expert of the word, not just us, right?
That's right. Let's get the expert on the show, not the talkers. Let's
get the fillers.
The fillers. That's right. Here we are. Here he is, Charlie Nardozzi on the show. There he is.
Hi,
the main dish has finally arrived.
Nice to be here.
So
Yeah.
great to have you. Thanks for joining us on the show here today to talk about this just really great book you wrote. And I know you've written about a lot of other books and talked about all sorts of gardening things throughout your career and all of that. But really exceptional book, man. Got to really hand it to you. This was
Oh,
great.
thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. And thanks for having me on the show to talk about the book.
Tell us a little bit about your CV. Like, what's your gardening trajectory in terms of your professional life and or personal life with gardening? And we know a little bit about from the book.
How much time do you have?
Yeah, right. Okay. It was the short
We
version.
we got a good enough time to get
You got
some
a good
good
elevator.
in there,
Okay.
but
I'll give you the Cliff Note version.
there you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I live in Vermont. I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
I have obviously Italian background with the name Nardozzi.
Yeah.
Nardozzi, as you would say in Italian. So my grandparents had a farm in Connecticut, and then whenever each one of the kids, they had 6 kids, got married, they gave them a piece of land on that farm to build their house. So I grew up with the farm, and my grandfather, we call it now a diversified farm. Basically, it's like he did whatever he had to do to survive, right? Raise some chickens, raise some cows, raise some pigs, grow some vegetables, have some apples, whatever it was. But I grew up with the farmhouse at the bottom of the hill, and then my aunt, my uncle, my aunt, our house, and my other aunt, all going up there, and I had all this extended family. And until I went to school, I kind of thought, well, isn't that how everybody grows up? With all their cousins around and their aunts and their uncles. But I had that whole experience of being on the farm right in my backyard. And he's always going down there, hanging out with my grandfather, watching him prune the heck out of his tomatoes. So all you had was a stem going up with a bunch of little stem Rosano tomatoes hanging on them, right?
Wow, interesting, right? Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff. So when it was time for me to go to school, I decided to go up to the University of Vermont and got a degree in plant and soil science, horticulture, basically. And then after that, I started working at a magazine, a national magazine called National Gardening. It was a pretty prominent magazine in the 80s, 90s. It folded, I think, in the early 2000s. But I worked for them a lot. And what was fun about that is that I went around the country interviewing different gardeners. We would profile home gardeners. So I went all over the country, and it really gave me an appreciation of growing vegetables and growing edibles in different parts of the country that we have here. So it was really nice. And then I started, of course, doing my own gardening. And the more I got into it, the more I did. And what ended up happening was that the publisher of National Gardening contracted with Wiley Publishing, who are famous for the Dummies books. You probably know the Dummies books, right? Yeah. So I worked on some of those. In fact, my name is still on Vegetable Gardening for Dummies and Urban Gardening for Dummies.
All right. Wow.
I don't know how many editions it is, and I've gotten 0 royalties from those books, but I was working for an organization.
Looks like you were the dummy in that case.
Yeah, in that case, I'm the dummy. Exactly.
Like, dang, they got me.
You need to read Publishing for Dummies.
Right. How to not write a book for dummies. Right?
There you go. That is your next book for sure.
Right. But eventually I started working with another publisher when I went out on my own, and I've written 5 books now for them, 2 regional books in the Northeast, and then Foodscaping, No Dig Gardening, which I touch on in this book as well.
Yeah, we want to talk about that more.
Yeah, and continuous vegetable gardening. So I started doing radio because they always get calls at the magazine. We need to interview someone about what's going on with the weather in gardens and that. So eventually I started having radio shows, which I continue to have in the Northeast, and TV shows. And I even won a regional Emmy back during COVID for doing a whole series on spring gardening in New England. With us, Connecticut PBS.
An Emmy Award winner with us.
Emmy Award winner. Do you want to see my Emmy? No. I happen to have it right here.
There you go. I know, right?
You got to trot that out whenever you can, right?
That's right.
Oh, congratulations. What a great background to be drawing from across so many different media too.
Yes,
kind of like our Northeast. We were just mentioning we got Cisco Morris on the show next week, so you're kind of like Northeast Cisco over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Television, radio.
Yeah, Cisco's great. And I come out to the Northwest Flower and Garden Show most years. I come out to do talks there. Great show, one of the best shows in the country, really.
Oh yeah, that's our favorite between both of us. Yeah, it's one of our favorites.
Great speaker series, and Cisco is always like the star. He walks around.
Big rooms.
He packs the big rooms. People are following him around the floor, asking him questions. And
our Mark is getting, man, I'm telling you, Mark got to do his first talk this last year up there, man.
I got a couple more
I'm telling you.
This year, so we'll see if I can get back there this year.
Okay, well, maybe I'll see you out there then in February.
In the Speakers Lounge, I found out, after being an attendee for many years, I finally got the secret VIP pass to the Speakers Lounge. So that was pretty nice. That was a chance to meet and greet certain people and just get in there and take a load off. After standing all day on the floor roaming around, it gets tiring. So
it does. It's a lot with all the people and everything.
Like, somebody's got a nice couch for me here waiting. This is awesome.
Yeah. And you get free tchotchkes too. It's really
good. A lot of tchotchkes. Yes. I actually planted up a lot of seeds from I know Botanical Interests. It was giving out a lot of seeds, and that's kind of good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get to see you coming up this next year. I'm definitely making sure I get up there this next February. Those shows happen in February, and hopefully you get out to that one too, and we'll get to meet you in person.
Well, should we plunge in? I got a big compliment to serve you up first of all, and then you can run with that from there. But most garden, so what I think you've done with this book is you have avoided the trap of putting in. I say most garden books should be about the size of a pamphlet, because that's about the amount of original material that's in a gardening book. And then they go through, it's like, here's my new method for, shoebox gardening or whatever. And then I'm going to tell you about leeks in shoebox gardening and eggplant in shoebox gardening. And they go through all the received knowledge of gardening throughout the centuries. And that becomes like the rest of the book. And that's most of the book. And really, they've got 3 pages of original thought. But in this book, you basically said, look, this information is everywhere. I'm not going to tell you. I'm only going to
love it throughout the book too. I love
somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, right away. Big praise.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Tell us about that a little bit and how you got this book.
When I was talking with the publisher, that was one of the things we talked about. Is that we didn't want to create just yet another edible gardening book. There's so many out there, and how to grow a tomato, how to grow this. And as you've been saying earlier in the show, it's so regional too. So how you're going to grow a tomato in Oregon is different than how I'm going to grow it in Vermont, and then how they grow it in Texas. So trying to cover all that in one book is just really, it's not going to happen. So what we decided to do is to have some resources. We have that resource section in the back of the book, but also just remind people as we're going through, here are the places you can go: the Extension Service, the Master Gardeners, seed companies, lots of great websites that are out there to get the basic gardening information. And then once you have that, then come talk to me. And we'll start talking about some of these techniques that I was talking about in the book, which quite frankly are not necessarily new. But what I think we did a good job of is we put it all together in one book. You'll get a book about how to do succession planting, or you get a book on perennial edibles, for example. But it's not often you can get a whole book that puts it together. And then we did that whole design chapter, which I was pretty proud of. So someone could take that design, go out in the garden, and literally just follow it from spring, summer, and fall, and show you what plants you should be putting in where, when you should be putting them in, and how they would work so that you could have 7, 8, 9 different kinds of vegetables in one raised bed. So it solves a problem that a lot of people have, is that I don't have room to grow all these things I want to grow. Well, if you use the techniques we're talking about in the book, you don't need to. You can have just a few raised beds, and if you do succession planting and interplanting and companion planting, and you stay on top of it, then you can be very successsul.
Right, there's the rub, right? Staying on top, finding ways.
Right.
These a great number of ships are launched, but then do they have the resources to make the journey, right? And that's a amount of maintenance that comes with it.
Well, that's another assumption I'm right up front with in the book. And if you notice that, but I said, this is not a book for those weekend gardeners, the people who come in like on Mother's Day, plant their whole garden, then maybe show up a week later to see what's going on. This is for gardeners who like to be out in their garden, who want to spend 10, 15 minutes a day, the beginning of the day, the end of the day, whatever, pulling a weed, harvesting some things, planting something new, cutting something back that's going to be replaced with something else. That's really what this book is aiming for, is someone who likes to garden, wants to be out in the garden, but also wants to have a continuous flow of vegetables, fresh vegetables. We're not looking to store vegetables, freeze, can, all that stuff. You could do that, But that's not really the main focus of the book. It's really about growing fresh vegetables so you can have a consistent supply right through your growing season.
Yeah, it's excellent. And yeah, Mark, glad you brought that up too, because that was one of the big things I really noticed throughout the book as well too, is like this, you could go find this there. There are plenty of books on this. This is all over online and all that sort of stuff, as to not have to kind of reiterate and go through all of that sort of stuff, and I loved it. And, in these book clubs, usually sometime through the conversation here, I want to do a little reading, but I wanted to kind of start off this conversation with a little bit right from the top of your book here, and just read a little bit here. It's from chapter 1, The Perks of Perpetual. Vegetable gardening remains very popular, but for many gardeners, space and time still remain barriers to growing some of their own food. Space has always been an issue with gardening. Yards are getting smaller. There are many competing uses for our green spaces, with kids and grandkids playing and families entertaining in the yard. It's no surprise it's hard to find a spot to grow some food. The average vegetable garden in the United States is about 600 square feet. However, the median size of the vegetable garden is less than 100 square feet. While there certainly are vegetable gardeners with large gardens, 50% of the vegetable gardens are only 100 feet or smaller. In the United Kingdom, the average size is even smaller. For those of our audience in the United Kingdom. Another limitation is time. In this past COVID world, many people are back to their away from home hectic lifestyles and don't feel they have time to garden. While they may want to grow some of their own food for all the obvious reasons of freshness, food safety, and taste, tending to a large garden just isn't in the cards for many homeowners and renters. While there is a segment of the population that is interested in homesteading and being more self-sufficient in their food production, I believe most people just want a steady stream of fresh vegetables, herbs, and fruits from their garden all season long. The overall interest in canning, storing, freezing, and drying the excess remains modest. What's the solution for a space and time-starved gardener wanting to grow interesting edibles in a more ecological friendly way? Continuous vegetable gardening. Maybe you could take us just a little bit further there from that reading and take us into what was this, what was it that brought about this idea of continuous vegetable gardening? How did you kind of discover this, in a way, if we'll call it that, right?
Sure. Yeah, well, it was a conversation. So this is a publisher I've worked with before, so I know the editor-in-chief. You might even know her, Jessica Walzer. And she's written books herself. So we just started a conversation. They were thinking about doing another vegetable garden book. And she had an idea about some of the things that you want to be in the book. And the more we talked, the more I realized that I'm already doing a lot of these things. The succession planting, interplanting, all of that kind of stuff in their perennial edibles, self-sowing vegetables, all these chapters that ended up being written in the book. I'm already doing a lot of that stuff already. So the challenge was to try to put it together, like you're saying, as one complete package, and not get bogged down in the what I call the encyclopedia effect, where then, here's the encyclopedia of all the fruits you could grow. Well, there are books written about each one of those fruits. So how much detail could you really put in a book about all the fruits? So whenever we talk about, because there's a chapter on fruits you can grow, talk about fruits or vegetables in some detail, I really talk about them only in the sense of how they fit into this idea of a continuous vegetable garden. And there's two main thrusts of the book. So the first part of the book is really about growing in a more ecologically friendly way. And what I've seen, you probably have seen all across the country now for many years, in the ornamental and perennial flower world, that's a big thrust. A lot of people are doing that now, not cutting back their perennials in the fall, for example, using native plants, all those kinds of things. But not many people talk about it in the edible world. How can you garden in a more ecologically friendly way when you're growing vegetables, herbs, and fruits or berry bushes? And so I wanted to broach that, and that's why there's that whole chapter on no-dig gardening, which I wrote a whole book on the subject. But I wanted to include it in here because people may not have seen the book. And the idea, as you probably well know, is that you don't want to turn, till, or disturb the soil, because there's an ecological system underneath your feet that's there that is maintaining and sustaining all the plants that are growing. And I talk briefly about that, how you can do that in your garden, in an edible garden, by doing that lasagna gardening or layering technique, where you build a raised bed. And I also promote raised bed gardening a lot too. You build a raised bed using organic materials. You cap it off with compost, and then you start planting in it. And then how would you maintain that and do it in a way that would be very similar to what happens in nature? You're mimicking what happens in nature. Nature in a deciduous forest drops leaves, which turn into compost, which feeds all the plants. Well, and you're not going to drop leaves, but you can put leaves in there.
Yeah, sure.
You can chop down plants that are still healthy instead of pulling them out and leave them there. Keeping the soil covered is a real main tenet of no-dig gardening. You don't want to have it exposed to the elements. You want to preserve that microbial life that's there. And the best way to do that is to keep it covered or having plants grow on it. Even if they're weeds, I tell people, you should have, it's better than leaving it bare. So that whole chapter kind of introduces the idea of ecological gardening, and then I start talking about perennial vegetables. And most people will think, oh, I know 2 or 3 maybe. I know asparagus. I know rhubarb. Right. I know those vegetables. But I try to introduce some different vegetables in that way. And the idea how perennial vegetables fits into this ecological idea is that you're not turning, tilling, or digging the soil. You're really growing a perennial there. And so you're really preserving that soil at the same time and getting these edibles. And then finally, the other chapter that kind of fits into the gardening in tune with nature is the self-sowing. How do plants reproduce and how they spread? Well, one of the ways is they self-sow. They create seeds, they drop them, and they spread. Well, you can use that to your advantage when you're growing vegetables, and a lot of people don't think of it that way. So I talk about which vegetables you can let self-sow, how can you let them self-sow, some of the dangers of self-sowing, all of that kind of thing. So there's a whole section on ecological gardening before we even start talking about the continuous gardening part of it, which is this idea of succession planting, interplanting, companion planting, following those designs I have on there by putting plants together that are compatible, not only compatible, but will help each other out in the garden, making it less work for you, taking up less space there, and the plants are healthier too. So that's kind of, in a very small nutshell, basically the book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of your themes, some of those themes really echo some that we've heard from other authors. Like last month, we were just talking with who was it? Kim Stoddard with the Climate Change Resilient Garden.
Yeah,
and she does this, again, very naturalistic style of gardening, lots of interplanting and allowing ecological systems. But let me go back to your past, because you grew up in this Italian farming tradition. And, sounds like very much row cropping kind of ideals.
Right.
When did you begin to transition away from that? Like, what were some of the insights or the moments when you're like, I learned a lot from grandpa, but now I got to break out a grandpa system?
I think, well, there's a natural divorce that happens with your parents and grandparents. You're like, I don't want to follow what they did. I want to do my own thing. Right. So when I went away to school in Vermont, that's exactly what happened. And that was the beginning of the organic gardening movement back then, late 70s, 80s. So there's a lot of people out there, the Elliot Colemans of the world out there that were doing very innovative things. And New Alchemy Institute, which is no longer, but it used to be down in Massachusetts, had all kinds of greenhouses that were doing and growing exotic things. So it really kind of opened my eyes, just kind of being in our environment to see what was possible. And I started gardening myself, like not my mother's garden or my grandfather's garden, but my own garden. And started playing around with organic gardening things, getting away from the 10-10-10 fertilizers and the 7 dusts and all that stuff, and trying to grow things in a more ecologically friendly way. But then I realized, 10, 20 years ago, that organic gardening really was still not enough, because you're still turning the soil, digging the soil. The mentality is still that there's something missing in that soil, and I've got to add it in there if I'm going to get anything out of it. Yeah. Whereas the ecological approach is that the soil, if you let it develop its own resources, it's got everything it needs there. And the plants are going to help the soil by sending 20 to 40% of the photosynthates, the things that they make, back into the soil. They're feeding the microbes. Right. So that's why it's important to have plants on that soil. So when I started seeing that and started experimenting with it in our own garden and seeing not only good results with the yields, I'm not trying to be a farmer, so I'm not really counting my yields, but I'm getting the food that I want out of it. But also it was taking less time, less energy, less water. It wouldn't have to water as much. And certainly I don't really fertilize anymore. So I was saving money and saving time all at the same time, and gardening in a more ecologically friendly way.
Interesting.
Yeah. I love it. Again, too, right from the get-go of the book, you start off with the question, why grow perennial vegetables? And I think I love about it too is that in looking at the book is that it's just kind of like creating this framework for a garden with your perennials and doing all this sort of stuff. And I really like that. But tell us a bit, why grow perennial vegetables? Let's dig into that.
Right. Well, when you think about the perennial vegetables, some of the ones I mentioned in that book, and certainly it's not an exhaustive list, but it's the ones that I think most people would be interested in or curious about, at least. Things like asparagus and rhubarb, some of the greens, leafy greens. I mentioned the perennial kales and the perennial broccoli, especially out in Oregon and the Pacific Northwest, where you have a milder winter. It's really not that hard at all to get those kinds of plants to come back year after year. It's just that the mainstream breeding, plant breeding that's happened in the vegetable world has turned a lot of those brassicas into annuals or biennials instead of the original genetic content, which was a perennial. But you can still find them, and they're still available in a lot of different seed companies, especially in the Pacific Northwest. So I looked at some of the things that are out there and some of the things people would be interested in. The bunching onions, for example, is another one. And one of the advantages is that when you think about when they produce their crops, it's early in the season. In fact, earlier than you're going to get anything that you sowed in the garden or planted in the garden, unless you're eating some baby arugula or something like that. Right. But for the most part, it's going to be some of the first things that you'll be harvesting from your garden. So that's a nice advantage to be able to have that there, so that it'll be an early crop for you. The other one, of course, is that it's perennial. You don't have to work so hard at it. Once I know building an asparagus bed can be a lot of work and digging a trench and all of that. But once it's going and you staying on top of it, not just saying, oh, hands off, I'm done with that asparagus bed. I don't have to do anything anymore. Yes, you may have to weed it. Yes, that might happen. And you might have to water it when it's young or something like that. But for the most part, compared to how you're taking care of other plants in your yard, you're not going to have to work as hard. And so that's a real nice key point for why to grow perennials. And then, of course, the whole idea of no-dig gardening. You're not tilling, turning, or messing around with the soil, so you're going to have healthier soil, too, and a healthier ecosystem.
And I will just add, though, too, you do include these, and I know you probably can't see very well, these really great plant profiles, too. Yeah. So we're getting and digging in and showing, giving you the plant itself, good descriptions. You're talking about growing them, harvesting and use, and these sort of things. So some really great plant profiles on some of those ones that you talk about that are more like what people would be most interested in. But you also do include a nice little chart of unusual perennials and herbs as well, too, for some of those other ones that you might want to try.
Right. This kind of expanding.
Like ostrich fern. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, fiddlehead ferns are called. Yep.
Yeah.
You can eat those just as they're coming out of the ground. A lot of these are things you eat just as they're emerging in the spring. Another early thing to eat.
Or hosta. I didn't know. I've grown hosta, but I was like never thought of that as an edible.
Yeah, in Japan, it's a delicacy. They'll go out and harvest hostas when it's small, maybe 4 to 6 inches coming out of the ground, kind of like you would harvest bamboo if you're growing edible bamboo. And then they tempura it, they put it in soups, they saute it, they use it in a lot of different ways. And it's got a kind of I don't know if we would say it's asparagus, but it's kind of has that feeling to it when you're munching away on it. It's really good. It's actually tasty. So I tell people, if they've got some hostas they don't really like anymore, instead of digging them out, eat them.
Eat them. Oh man, I'm gonna have to try it just to try it. I never thought of it, but yeah.
Maybe asparagus is like the go-to word for vegetables. It's like, what does it taste like when everybody says, I ate frogs. Like, what does it taste like? Chicken. Even pasta says, asparagus.
That tastes like asparagus. Yeah.
Also, got to say though, as far as hosta goes, I mean, if the slugs love them, then we might as well too, right?
They've got good taste.
They've got good taste. They sure do in my garden.
They eat all the best plants.
They do.
Plant world and put in the wine cap mushrooms too. Those have been really and especially if you get the arborist wood chips, I find they just take off in there and then they will fruit for years. This year I run a school garden, and so we have a lot of them popping up here and there at school. And this year I took the caps, the mature caps when the gills were open and the shedding fungal spores, and I brought like 4 or 5 caps over to another wood chip pile, and I just buried them. So I'm going to see if in the fall now I'm going to.
Yeah.
I hope they will have inoculated that pile too. So.
Yeah, they're a fun mushroom because of, just like you're saying, Mark, they spread around on their own. So after a year of growing them in a bed, I created a wood chip bed. Then I started seeing them in the blueberries or over by the flowers or underneath the trees. Like they're popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's just really a nice way to have mushrooms in your yard without having to really work hard to do it.
You know what I want to say, just for new gardeners or people who haven't tried these experimental things, or it's just like, okay, I'm going to grow Oka, Mashua, and Yacon next year in my garden. It's good to try in small amounts. Two, it's okay to try and say, I don't really like this. Just because it's perennial, just because it's valued by another culture doesn't mean, there's been many things where I've tried and then you leave them to the side because it doesn't correspond to whatever your particular tastes are. But the trying is exciting, and the knowing that there are these possibilities. And that there are these, like Yacon, for example, that's a Dahlia family member. Really intriguing tuber. I mean, I'd grow that again. I just am not growing it right now, but I grow it again. Yeah. But the plant is also beautiful. It's gigantic and has these soft, fuzzy, triangular leaves. It's really that was really a revelation when I grew that.
Right. Yeah. I try to put things in there that would not just be for a beginning gardener, someone who's been experienced and might want to try a few new things. And that's a good example of it with that plant.
Yeah. So maybe you have a space in your garden for trials, but you're willing to eject them if they don't really work for you.
Yes, exactly.
So in a limited garden, pretty much lots of things should be working for you, right? Maybe there's space for 10% experiment, but you're hoping the rest is the stuff you're really going to depend on and eat. And
right. I also talk about having what I call a wild space in our garden.
Oh yeah, I love that.
And this is where I put things that are more aggressive. So even stuff like a rhubarb, if you ever watch how rhubarb grows, it took over our bed in a couple years. So every year we have to kind of push it back, cut it back, dig it out, give it away, plant it somewhere else, whatever. But I talk about other plants like stinging nettles for that reason. That's one that I say that and people say, why would you eat something that's going to sting you? Well, once you cook it, it doesn't sting you. And in fact, it's a delicious plant. It makes a great spring soup, and it could be used medicinally. It's got a lot of uses for it. But that's one that'll spread. And horseradish is another one that'll spread. So instead of fighting to put them in places where I've got to watch all the plants around them, I put them all together. I just put them in a corner of our garden, and they just duke it out.
They can bully each other, right?
And they're battling it out there, and every spring I've got to push them back. Or with horseradish, it happens in the fall as I'm harvesting it. I'm pushing it back a little bit, and then they spread a little bit more, and everybody seems to kind of have stood their ground. And I get what I want out of it, and they're still alive.
I noticed something in your book that made me laugh. I misunderstood it at first, but then I really got the meaning of it. At one point you said, when I think it was in the chapter about self-sowing seeds, you talked about being a garden editor, or you become more of a garden editor. And I first thought that was a reference to you, like, oh, this guy writes books too, so he needs less time in the garden so he can go be a garden editor, so he can be like looking at the computer. But really what a garden editor is, as I then laughed at myself, realizing it's like you're taking this abundance that's offering itself to you, and you are selecting and saying, okay, I see that's an arugula plant that's self-sprouting, but I'm going to take it out there because it doesn't belong there. Amaranth, I'm going to leave that there because I want it to grow and become a flower. So there's this like a whole series of offerings, and you are now not planting so much as taking out because you have so many things growing. So talk to us a little bit about that whole self-seed, because I think that's a new idea for most people.
I think so too. Yeah, I first heard about it actually on one of my radio shows years ago. This older guy called in and said he's got an interesting way to grow his lettuce. So what he says in Vermont, in March, we of course have snow on the ground. He said, I go out in March and I take a seed packet of lettuce and I sprinkle it on top of the snow, on top of the bed. And that's all I do.
Wow. I thought that was something.
Yeah, and it said invariably every spring that lettuce seed there always germinates earlier, is healthier, it grows faster than anything I put out there as a transplant or a seeded thing, say in May, when we normally would be planting it. So it got me thinking about it, and then I said, well, why even plant the seed there? Why not just let lettuce bolt, drop its own seed and see what happens? So I experimented with that, and that's when I started seeing that, oh my God, I'm getting all this lettuce all over the place.
Yeah.
And so now we don't buy lettuce seed anymore. We just let it self-sow, and we pick different varieties that we like, a romaine, a red leaf, a loose leaf. We let a couple plants of each type bolt, which is what they're doing right now. They're dropping seed. If you're in a warmer climate area, like out in Oregon, you probably would get a fall crop of lettuce. Up in Vermont, we kind of don't have a long enough season for that. We'll get some baby seedlings, but not really a big crop. But the big thing we get is the seed overwinters, and then it germinates at exactly the right time for that seed, because it knows when the right moisture conditions, warmth of the soil is happening, daylight, all of that. You can't fool Mother Nature that way.
No.
And you can't anticipate it. A lot of times as gardeners, we're always thinking, should I plant now or should I wait a week? It looks like it's going to be warm, but then it's going to get colder. We're always kind of second guessing what's happening. Whereas this kind of technique, you just let nature do it. Nature will know when to germinate those seeds. And then you have all these seedlings coming up, and you have an option, like I mentioned in the book. Then you can either just leave them there, you can edit them, as you were saying, Mark, and move them around, or you can just thin them out and just get rid of them in certain areas. But you end up having all this free seedlings that you can just move around, and it's fun. It's just a kind of a fun way to garden. Instead of working so hard to get your little row of lettuces to grow, you've got them growing everywhere.
Yeah. And I think about that as I think about my garden this year, and I was talking just a little bit earlier about it, is that, I came in with some real low expectations. I started a couple of things and had a couple of things I intended to do, but that was it. But with the way the garden goes year after year and all the years I've been around here, I got tons of volunteers, tons of self-sowing plants that are popping up all over the place. And at times, too, I feel like, again, they say a weed is a plant that's just in the wrong place or whatever, right?
Right.
And so I'm pulling like in my, I have an area for this certain type of cherry tomato I grow, and I just let them drop and do their thing. And like you said, they know when it's time to come up. And they grow better and stronger by self-sowing themselves. But but I got a whole row of just hundreds and hundreds of little tomato plants now that I've got to weed out of that space and select the few that I'm going to actually continue to grow and all of that.
Right.
Which, again, it makes it in a way it's a different kind of fun and normal gardening activity, in a sense that that we're doing by going out there and weeding plants that we're intending on growing in a way.
Right.
But you also talk about, though, in this chapter here about self-sowing concerns with self-sowing.
Sure.
And this is kind of one of them in a way too, is that you got to thin them out and everything. But also, what are some other concerns and things we should be thinking about when it comes to self-sowing?
Sure. Yeah. So certainly plants that naturally cross, anything in the cucurbit family, the melons, the squashes, the cucumbers, anything that unless you have protected that plant from crossing with another plant or another variety, you're going to get all these different hybrid things coming up, and it's really not going to be true to what you have. So you don't even bother trying to do those. Let the professionals do all that kind of hybridization. And the other group that you have to watch out for is, you were mentioning tomatoes. So there are tomatoes that will come more or less true to seed, especially the cherry tomatoes. The wild currant tomatoes, like Matt's Wild Cherry, is one of those that it'll drop to the ground, and what comes up the next year, that seedling will probably grow pretty much the same kind of tomatoes as the original plant. But you have to watch out for disease, especially for things like tomatoes, potatoes, any of those kind of plants, blights and things of that nature. So I always tell people, if your seedlings don't look very healthy for whatever reason, just pull them out. There's no need to leave them in the garden, because they're just going to infect other plants, potentially affect other plants that's in the garden. So you do have to watch out for that. They can overseed themselves. We do this with herbs and with flowers, edible flowers like calendula overseeds itself. We got it all over the place.
I
so
got
I take out.
I got calendula popping up in places, and how did it even get there?
It's in a crack in your patio, like 100 yards away. How did you get over there? So you have to really thin out some plants if they're going to be healthy. You have to still remember plants need space to grow. They're just not going to grow up and look beautiful if they're just self-sowed so thickly like that. So you have to thin them out. You have to watch out for diseases, and also watch out for crossing, cross-pollination, which could end up yielding something that's really not going to be very edible.
Mm. On the topic of lettuce and letting things go to seed, we were again talking with our great facilitator Jay Dixon, who's behind the scenes putting up all these great comments, references. I mean, you could barely it's barely out of your mouth, and there's a website already there.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been
Thanks,
seeing
Jay.
banners, but they're going crazy. But she was talking about the perception, though, and this is be an interesting thing to talk about a little bit. That when you let a plant go to seed, even if she's tending a community garden where she's got some carrots and beets going to seed, and there's not a weed in the garden, but the fact that they're going to seed has prompted some passersby to talk about how rangy that garden looks.
Yeah.
We have to have an action here. We got to get a fine going of this person who's not caring for the garden. So I'm just wondering, like, if there's ways, either by putting a little sign like this crop is going to seed, or just, I don't know if you've encountered that with people, like trying to save seed and trying to let crops go to seed. It does give a potentially, to the untrained eye, an unkempt look to the garden. So how do you deal with that, or how do you advise people to deal with that?
Yeah, that's especially true in community gardens or in small neighborhoods where people can really see your gardens. Yeah, and I think it's all about education. It's just letting people know what's happening there and why it's happening that way.
Yeah.
If you really are very concerned about it, you can be strategic about where you plant them in the garden. Maybe you put them behind something that's a little taller. And so when they're going to seed, say lettuce this time of year, you've got some, I don't know, corn or big tomatoes or something in front of it that you won't really be able to see that. So you can kind of be a little more strategic about where you plant them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we live on 5 acres out in the country, so no one bothers us about anything. Other than my wife and I, we have some discussions about how seedy things look sometimes in the garden.
Yes.
Can we clean that up over there just a little bit? So, so it's really just about education and then being a little more clever about what you're letting self-sow and where you're letting it do it.
Yeah.
That's where we kind of gotta let some of the garden beauty kind of step aside a little bit for our intentions of growing food, right?
Yeah, sometimes. I noticed one of your listeners, Rob, I think it was talking about self-sowing sunflowers. Its question kind of popped up on there. And that's a fun one because that's another plant that I haven't bought seeds for in years. So what I'll do with that is at the end of the season, after the birds have cleaned it out and the mice have done all the thing, you think there's no sunflower seeds in there. I still cut the whole stalk down, drag it to a different part of the garden where I want sunflowers next year, and just leave it there. Just leave it there.
Oh, yeah.
And then invariably, the mice and the birds haven't gotten all the seed, and there'll be a bunch of seeds coming up in the spring. So you can work around it a little bit like that as well, just moving things around when you're trying to get them to self-sow.
We have a big row of sunflowers that we just let self-sow, but at school, which is really beautiful because then it's great for the birds, and there's tons of the goldfinches are just all over it right now.
Yeah.
What I like to do, and this is because with the educational bent, is every year I'll plant a couple of named varieties close by, and then I watch to see if some of those traits get into the general self-sowing. So it's like you could have like a lemon queen. But I've had like a teddy bear, kind of that blown back, that fuzzy blown back. And it's fun to see some of these start to creep into what is more or less just a kind of a standard yellow sunflower. But then you'll start to get these little genetic twists and turns as it's evolving. So
that's the fun part about it. You start saving the seed or letting it self-sow, and you start just letting nature do its selection. And you can end up having the Mark variety of sunflower someday.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is. There's Mark right over
there. It is. It's very fun.
Yeah, I think we were mentioning him earlier, Joseph Lofthouse Landrace Gardening. He wrote a book on and all that. That's sort of same type of concept of just kind of letting nature do its thing and see what you come up with.
Sure. Yeah. And with flowers, you're not so as concerned about the quality of them or the coloring of them versus something you're trying to eat. So you have to be a little more careful, I think, with those.
But in a way, we spent the beginning while we were John away there talking about the changes that we're experiencing in climate and weather.
Yeah.
But in some way, this self-sowing is exactly the solution to that, because we're encouraging nature to figure out the solution.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
The ones that are most suited to these vacillating climates are going to be the ones that keep, progressing and saving their own seed and such, sowing their own seed.
and getting genetically stronger each season to be more adaptive to those conditions.
Yeah, to your specific conditions in your yard. The conditions can change. Going down the street in somebody else's yard might be very different from yours.
Yeah, the microclimates.
Microclimates, soils, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's brilliant. I want to talk about the weeds too, because I love weeds. For me, like like you said, you highlighted these weeds, and here's a funny story that I read years ago. I picked up the New York Times once a long time ago, and I read this story about Jean-Georges von Gerichten, who's a famous chef in New York City. And he went to a conference somewhere once with his sous chef, and he found the food so terrible at the cafeteria that he and his chef would go out and forage in the fields to make their own salads and things. They're highly nutritious salads that were full of real flavor and real nutrients. So when I see like you highlighting purslane, chickweed, red root pigweed, the amaranth, the lamb's quarter, it's like I am often on my knees weeding, but the weeds are going right into my mouth. And it's like, this is where the nutrition is, and I want these things at least to stay to a certain level. So I may let one or two go because they will, sow tens of thousands of seeds, a lot of them.
Yeah, once you've let them go to seed once, you probably never have to let them go to seed again, because there'll be so many thousands of seed in the soil forever. And I think I told the story in the book about dandelions. And my Italian relatives coming up from New York City and going out in the fields and collecting all the wild dandelions, because they were reminiscent of the wild chicories back in southern Italy, which is a different plant family actually, but the leaf itself looks the same and tastes the same. The chicory, of course, has the blue flower, and the one that we normally see in lawns is yellow flowered. But they would harvest them and bring them back, and they have a flavor that we don't really see much in our culture, which is a little bit of a bitter taste to them. And it's an acquired taste. And I used to live in Thailand. I was in the Peace Corps many years ago, and they use bitter flavors a lot in their foods. So I really got used to it, and I got to appreciate it. But my grandmother would then take all the chagadia, is what they would call it in their dialect, and she would cook it up with garlic and onions and tomatoes, and then serve it with homemade bread and wine. And one of my friends once said, "Well, Charlie, what doesn't taste good with garlic, tomatoes?"
That's what I was kind of thinking.
Wine and bread. Pretty much you could put grass in there and it would taste good. Got a point there.
Have you heard of Lane Selman and the Culinary Breeding Network?
I have heard of that, yes.
Yeah, she is a fascinating person who's on the boundary between chefs and plant breeders and trying to encourage dialogue. But she's also Italian. She has, I think she's roots from Sicily, and she's been there often. And she's spearheading this whole chicory movement in the Northwest, because our climate's ideal for it in the winter. And she has taken this idea of there's apparently all these festivals in Italy. It's called sagras, and they'll be about all kinds of different things. But she was over there once, and she stumbled upon the zucchini sagra, and it was all all these recipes with zucchini. She thought, I'm going to do that for chicory. So in the Northwest, she has created these chicory sagras that have been going on. Cool. And again, like bringing people together, breeders generating new types and varieties, and just getting people hip to this idea of bitterness and winter food. So she's doing a lot on that, and we got to talk to her later on at some other point, because this idea of bitters and the dandelion greens and the wild crafting of the food, or letting some of that come into your garden by actually taking a dandelion puffball and spreading it in your garden. How about that as an idea?
You could do that, but you can actually buy seed of the real chicory from Italy. I know a lot of seed companies carry it now, and that's what I do, because I like the way it stands more upright versus the one that we grow in lawns is really flat, hard to harvest. And it doesn't go to seed. If it does go to seed, it happens late in the season. And so it really maintains its integrity right through the season. You can just cut it as you like, throw it in soups and salads, wherever you want to use it, and it comes back. It's a perennial, so it's a really nice plant to have.
So these weeds, or slightly weedy plants, I think are super important in our gardens too, just for our health. I mean, they are experts at taking these nutrients. I mean, a lot of the breeding, like you've said, with brassicas, they've changed the timeline, but they've also changed the nutrient composition. So getting back to some of these hardier, weedier plants seem to be really important for our nutrition too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So again, in the reading I talk that I did from the beginning of the book, we're talking about space. Space is limited. And
Sure,
not
sure.
very many people have very much space, and urban areas growing and expanding more and more. Space becomes even more limited. You do spend some time, which I love, throughout the book as well too, because it's dear to my heart, because that's my kind of specialty is urban gardening, small space gardening. But you
Sure.
talk about growing perennial vegetables and herbs and such in containers. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that as well too, and including containers throughout your garden space.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier in the show, I have a whole design chapter talking about raised beds, which is a good way to save space. But you can go even further if you just have a deck or a patio or a little small backyard by using containers. And there's been kind of a revolution in container growing and containers themselves over the last couple decades, where you have these polyurethane containers now that look like they're beautiful clay pots or metal pots, and yet they're made out of this polyurethane plastic. And it's UV stabilized, it's strong. If you forget about it and you're in a cold climate and you leave the soil out in it over winter, it doesn't crack, it doesn't break. It holds its color, so it looks nice in the garden. And you can get self-watering versions of that now, or have reservoirs underneath them where you just fill the reservoir up and you go away for the weekend. You don't have to worry about that plant drying out, because through osmosis, that water is going to move from the reservoir up into the dry soil. So you can grow a lot of different kinds of edible plants in those containers, including fruits. I mentioned that in the fruit chapter too. Some of the dwarf varieties of apples and blueberries that are out there now that will fit well in a container. And you can be gardening in a small space without much of a yard just by using your containers. And the advantage, of course, with containers is that you can move them around. And so if you're in a climate where you have adverse weather, it gets really too hot or really too cold or windy or thunderstorms, you can just move things into a protected spot. Or if you're in a place where it gets shady come this time of year, August, September, because the sun's lower in the sky and it's going behind some trees, whatever, you can move it to another spot. So you can actually be more proactive about making sure your plants are getting exactly what they need.
Yeah.
I'm seeing Meg's Edible Landscapes is really on containers. She's like, preaching.
That's the same, man. I'm telling you. Containers are big, like you said. It's with more and more limited space and more and more people, gaining an interest in gardening, in cities where they just don't have real space to do things. They can use containers to make a continuous vegetable garden as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
One of my projects is being a rooftop gardener, and my tagline is always rooftop gardening is container gardening. It's just one big container.
It's one big container.
Yeah. Really we didn't talk too much about fruit, and I just want to conjure an image and from the book that was beautiful to me. You have a bed of asparagus, but it is absolutely covered in strawberries. So it's like this veg and fruit combo. Can you just talk about maybe fruit in terms of like tucking in or as complements to vegetables? Or, I mean, obviously they stand alone in so many ways as well too, but
right.
How do you take fruit and veg to get that compactness and that incredible range of harvest?
Yeah, it all comes back to that whole idea of compatibility. So when you think of that experiment, the example of the asparagus and the strawberries are a shallow-rooted plant. The asparagus is a deep-rooted plant, so they're not really mining the nutrients in the same levels of the soil. The strawberries will spread out and cover the soil, and the asparagus likes to have the soil covered because it keeps it moist, and it also keeps weeds away, which is probably one of the biggest problems people have with asparagus is keeping up with the weeding of it. And yet the asparagus will grow up eventually to fern after you stop harvesting it, and that will give those strawberries a little shade. So if you're growing day neutral strawberries that produce all through the summer into the fall, you can be protecting them from those heat waves. So it's that whole idea of having something that's really compatible and just how they grow together. And in the book, I talk about that. I talk about growing things like mint underneath some of my fruit trees. So I do have fruit trees in the lawn area, but instead of mulching them with the bark mulch you see that's ubiquitous, it's all over the place, I put mint down there, peppermint or spearmint, and just let it spread. It spreads, it forms a mat, it eventually flowers, which is great to bring in predatory insects and insects that would be beneficial for the garden. And if it escapes into the lawn a little bit, I don't mind, because when I'm mowing, I'll get a waft of mint.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah,
Love
so
Refreshing.
it's kind of changing a little bit of your attitude about that and your prejudice about, mint you can't put in the garden because it spreads. Well, let's use mint spreading to our advantage. Let's use strawberry spreading to our advantage. I have a whole hedgerow of shrubs that are all planted with an understory of strawberries. And I swear that we get more strawberries out of that hedgerow than I do in the raised beds where I grow them exclusively, mostly because the birds and the animals don't know where they are. They can't really find them. And so it's like a treasure hunt. You go out there, it's like, oh, look at that. I got a whole bunch of strawberries here.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Love
And
it.
just a follow-up question, when you fertilize, like let's say a bed like that, the asparagus strawberry bed, is this just primarily compost that goes on it in the down season, and you're just keeping the buildup of going and letting the plants follow?
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I do. I put the compost down, early in the season. Once things start coming up, I'm experimenting a little bit by putting arborist wood chips in there too. I don't want to create too dense of an environment, but that will help preserve some of the soil moisture and prevent some of the weeds growing too. Right. So it's always an ongoing experiment to make it easier.
Yeah. Indeed.
All right, a couple of things here. And I want to get one of Jay's questions in here as well too. But there was a line in here that I had to highlight, and I just really liked. It says, "I'm not too interested in achieving record yields from my plants. I just want a consistent supply of vegetables all season long."
Right, and
I really.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I think that's kind of, my experience working with gardeners, being on the radio, answering questions, all of that for years, 30 years, 35 years, is that I think that's really what people want. There's a lot of talk about, well, you should be self-sufficient and you can and freeze. That's a lot of work. If you're really into it, go for it. But
absolutely,
for the average person that's got a family and jobs and a house to take care of and all this other stuff, they just want to go out there in the evening and pick a whole bunch of cherry tomatoes to put in their salad, or pick a couple of zucchinis to saute, or some beans, or whatever it is that they're growing. So the whole mentality we usually used to come into gardening with is an agricultural mentality. That's why we did the straight rows, because of the agricultural things. That's why we added all this fertilizer, agricultural ideas. And we don't need to be agriculturalists. We're gardeners, and gardeners just need to have enough food that's going to make them feel good about gardening and actually help them in their family.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's get into Jay's question here. And she asks, could you walk us through how you would design a continuous vegetable garden from the ground up, starting with choosing crops and varieties, then deciding when and where to plant them? I'll also add, though, because we've mentioned this a couple of times already in the conversation, I think one of the real kind of cool parts of the book are these like illustrations and layouts of different gardens, where you're kind of answering this question in a way with these illustrations. You got a whole bunch of other ones where you're taking us through different numbers of beds. Under different conditions, like full sun, shade, hot climate, all different types of makeups for your garden bed. You've got a lot of that sort of stuff there too. Maybe in general, you could just kind of walk us through a little bit of how you would kind of start something from scratch.
Yeah, I can give a couple examples of them that are from the book. One of the ones we use is one where we start in the spring. We have the designs are 4x8 raised beds. And so in the spring, we'll plant peas. That's one of the early crops you plant. And how we plant them is we put a trellis in the center of the bed and 2 rows of peas, one on either side of the trellis. But I don't need 8 feet of peas. If you know how peas produce, well, it'd be 16 feet with the 2 rows. That's a lot of peas. So I use maybe half the bed for that. And so I'll have my peas there. And on the ends of that, that's where I grow things like cucumbers and trailing zucchini. And the reason I'm growing trailing zucchini is because it exists. That's a good reason to do it. Most people don't think of zucchini as a trailing thing, but there are varieties. The Incredible Escalator is one from Renee's garden, right up down the road from you, California. And then there's one as an Italian heirloom I grow every year called Tromboncino.
Oh, I love that one.
Oh, that one grows crazy, right? But the idea is that I first got this idea on one of my garden tours. I do garden tours around the world too. We were in France and we were visiting a market gardener. He had a whole row of zucchinis in a 6-foot fence, a wire fence, and they're all tied up with like Velcro ties or something to that fence. And we were looking at it, and it's like he's saving space. Everything's elevated. He doesn't have as much disease and insect problems, and everything's easy to find and harvest because it's right there in your face. I mean, it's elevated. It's right there, easy to harvest. So in this bed, we have the peas in the middle. We put our zucchinis and cucumbers on the ends of that bed. And then on either side of those peas, we're growing leafy greens, because one of the myths that's been debunked in the soil science world is that to get the benefit from a leguminous crop like a pea or a bean, you have to till it under. And then that releases the nitrogen. Now they're finding that that's not true. Actually, what's happening is that as that plant is growing, it's releasing nitrogen into the soil. And I can attest to that because I grow lettuces and Swiss chard and kale on either side, and they do fabulously. So that's what it looks like in the spring. By summer, if you look at that bed, the peas are gone. And I'm really a big proponent of not being a tender-hearted gardener. You know, it's like, oh, there's 2 more flowers left on the peas. I should see what they form. Right. No. Get rid of it. Move on to the next thing. So we take that out. You can put in a summer crop of beans, bush beans, for example. The lettuces are done. Maybe you put some other crops in there, some root crops or something there. And then you're letting your zucchinis and your cucumbers on the ends continue to grow. Then come fall, all the beans are done, maybe a lot of the lettuces are done, maybe the Swiss chard's still there. Then you can come in with some root crops like a fall crop of carrots or beets or radishes and things of that nature. Maybe the zucchinis are done at that point. So if you hear all the different things I'm mentioning, in this one bed, you can grow 7, 8, 9 different kinds of vegetables right through the season. So those are the kind of examples that are in the book that you can really help you in a very detailed way.
Yeah, those plans are amazing. And it's always great to see a nicely illustrated. It's very inspirational, right? The illustration will motivate you to try to achieve the same or something similar.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like it. Towards the end of the book, I put it all together in one backyard, what I call it. There's an illustration of a backyard that shows you how you can have all these things I talked about in one small little quarter-acre backyard, right? You have an edible hedgerow where you can grow the strawberries under the hedgerow, like we've talked about. You have the full sun garden with all the designed beds. You have a part shade garden close to the house where you can grow your leafy greens. You have some blueberries near the house, some of the dwarf blueberries. That's the one. Thank you very much. Where you can plant those so they don't grow up into your windows or into the walkways. Around the corner, you can have raspberries or blackberries that can grow in part shade and actually fruit. Then you have a few fruit trees in your lawn, understory of mint or some other plants, and then the wild area off in the corner that I talked about. So it may sound like a lot when you look at the book, but when you put it in your yard, you might realize that, actually, you can fit these things on the edges of your yard and still have them very productive.
You're kind of a stealth permaculturalist. You mentioned the word once, but it's really worked very through everything. I think I thought I'd call you. You're a permacultural ninja here. You're kind of sneaking in with these concepts.
Sneaking it in without calling it permaculture. Yes, I have to admit that. I think people get intimidated by words like, like permaculture. It's like, oh, you've got to be a PhD or something. Right. So that's why I didn't really talk about it. But a lot of the concepts come from the permaculture school. Yes.
Yeah, we see what you're doing. We see you.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad you're watching.
Excellent. Yeah, and winding down towards the end of the book, you do have a chapter on, again, too, we were talking earlier, Mark and I, about pests and problems and things like that. So you got a great chapter in here towards the end called Plant Protection for Season Extension, Pest Control and Weather Extremes.
Yes.
I'm going to take some of these sort of concepts you take on in this chapter.
Yes, for sure. Now, certainly this is just one small chapter in this book, so it's not going to be the exhaustive, what do I do about my squash bugs you were mentioning earlier, that kind of thing. There's tons of information, again, out there for you to find out regionally in your area what to do organically with all those kinds of pests. What I was focusing on in that chapter is really the use of covers. And I see that being used more and more. You certainly see commercial growers doing this. Hoop houses, plastic hoop houses all the time. Where I live, they grow tomatoes and they grow melons and they grow cucumbers in these hoop houses because it protects the plants from the extreme weather conditions you get, and it protects them from more or less from insect and disease issues that come up. So you can do a similar kind of thing in your own garden. You don't have to have a hoop house. You could create one. They're not that hard to put up, and they're really nice to have. But if you have certain pests that you're worried about, say we'll take a common one like a cabbage worm that you get on broccoli and kale and cauliflower and cabbages, instead of going out there and spraying or squishing eggs or freaking out when you see the little white butterfly flying around, it's, oh my God, we got to stop dinner and go get the butterfly. It's laying eggs. You can just use material to cover your plants, because many vegetables we grow do not need to be cross-pollinated to get the vegetable that you want. And I'm thinking in this terms of any of those brassicas, the broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. So I put this material, it's called a micro mesh. I saw it in England many years ago on one of our trips. And it's kind of like a window screen material, but very flexible. I drape that over them, and I put down some tent stakes or some boards to secure it. And what it does, it lets the light in, lets the water in, it lets you see in what's going on, but it blocks the insect from laying the egg that gets the whole cycle started. So there are certain places in our garden we have this material on them all season long because it protects them, and it avoids a lot of the problems that you normally would run into.
Yeah, we have it pretty easy out west. I grew up in New Hampshire and started farming back east, and I recall the insect pressure was just so much more intense than it has been out here. So I give thanks for that. I moved to an easier part of the country, but East Coast seems to always have something chomping on something.
Yeah, exactly. I think this growing season's shorter, so everybody is just like moving along really quickly here in the insect world. Let's eat something and reproduce and get it all done with here.
Exactly.
So the solution could be like what you did, Mark. We should all move to the West Coast.
That's right. That's right.
Oregonians are famous for saying, "No, stay out."
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You're kind of like, no,
we got enough.
Yeah. Well, we will probably.
But like both of us, though, Mark, is that we did move to Oregon.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have
okay for you to do it, huh?
Right. Exactly.
Nothing to stand on. We're imports ourselves.
Yeah.
Wow. One thing I'm noticing here, and I think this is the first time we've had this trifecta, is all three people are wearing hats, but not only hats, but different kinds of hats.
Yeah, look at that. I got
kinds of hats. Yeah.
That seems like your signature, because I think you show up in the book with that hat as well.
I show up pretty much everywhere with that hat.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the same here with mine too. Everybody knows me for the flat cap.
You know, so it's like, they know who I am.
We got our look. It's all established.
That's right.
That's wonderful. Excellent. Yeah, time's flying by here. I got to get a couple more things in here real quick, though, too, because, again, finishing up the book, and Mark and I kind of talked about this a little bit before the show. I thought one of the cool little things you put in here was this overwintering your tomato plants. Put it in the, like you said, like a T-shirt, and then in a bag or something, and then we're storing it away and everything, too. But that's kind of what Chapter 9 kind of covers, is bring in perpetuity indoors.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things that we can do there. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that as we're finishing up here.
Sure. Yeah. I added some of those
little I want to do too.
Okay. I added some of those more, I call garden nerdy kind of things. Like you have this one tomato that you love. Maybe your Aunt Vicky brought it back from Sicily, 50 years ago, and you can't find it anywhere. And I've got to save this one plant, and saving the seed doesn't always work. So
or if you got the Abraham Lincoln we talked about last week, which is lost out there somewhere.
Oh, it is.
Believed by Craig LaHoulier. So if you got that one, definitely do this.
Right. So I got this idea from Savvy Gardener. I give them a shout out. That's a great website. They have a lot of great gardening information. And Jessica Walzer, the publisher, the editor-in-chief, she's one of the partners of that website. But anyway, what you do is that you get your tomato, and tomatoes are perennials, peppers too. I talk about doing the same thing with peppers. You get your plant that you're saving, you dig it up in the fall, you knock all the soil off, you trim the roots down, you cut it way back so that there's only a couple little sticks coming out from the base of that plant. That's all you're going to have. Clean it up, wash it, clean it all up. Then, as you were saying, you just lay it down on like an old T-shirt or an old piece of cloth that you have. Wrap up the root system with some sphagnum peat moss that's been moistened, and then tie it like a diaper, basically, and then wrap that up with some plastic, and then store it in a basement or a cool area that stays 35 to 45 degrees all winter, and literally it just goes dormant. It just sits there. You can check it every month just to make sure it hasn't dried out, but just leave it. And then in our climate at Zone 5, where I am, probably in April, about a month before you're going to put it outside, you pull it up, you put it in a container, you let it start growing. And the beauty about this is not only you're saving a variety, but you're saving the mature plant of that variety. So it's going to grow much faster, much quicker, and it's going to fruit and produce fruit much sooner than those little seedlings you stick out, and you're waiting months for them to actually start fruiting. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. I don't know if everyone would ever try it, but if you're interested, it's all right there.
Yeah.
I was telling Enoch, I tried it with eggplant this year, except I did a slightly different thing. I kind of kept it growing under my grow lights, but bonsai'd it to a degree.
Sure.
I did a root pruning and a top pruning to get it pretty small. And then as it continued to grow a little bit, I would keep pruning it. It did go through some cycles of aphid attacks, so that's
right.
Keep it alive like that. So maybe I'll try your cooler method next year.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about it, is that you're not going to have insect pressure on it, because you've just really eliminated all the places insects could be.
Right.
So you're just going to leave it that way. But that's kind of a fun way to do that. You can do it with peppers too. Artichokes, I think I mentioned in that chapter too, is another one. Globe artichokes, certainly out west, are perennials, and you can just let them keep dividing, and you can divide them and move them around. And so there's a lot of these kind of cool vegetables that you can kind of store and keep having, let alone grow things under lights. That's a whole other topic. But
that's another one I know Mark really loves too, is the microgreens.
Microgreens, right.
We could go on and on. We could do a whole show just on that.
Oh yeah, I know, absolutely. For
sure. Right.
Right on. Let's see here. Let's get one more of Jay's questions in here real quick here. Jay asks, since the Continuous Vegetable Garden was published, what has changed in the way you think about year-round or season-long vegetable gardening?
Well, what's changed, and it's been an ongoing change, is that I don't categorize or pigeonhole the activities in the garden. It used to be in the spring you plant, in the summer you're watering and you're weeding, and then in the late summer, fall you're harvesting. That doesn't happen anymore. I'm planting as we go along. I'm weeding and harvesting as we go along. It's just like everything is kind of happening at once now, but not just in such a way that it's overwhelming, but in a more easier, more relaxed kind of way.
Yeah. You got one last question, Mark?
Well, just a comment, as you said, early on when we were talking about this, a little saying flitted through my mind: the best fertilizer is the footsteps of the gardener. So just that sense of like this kind of approach happens when you're willing to spend your 15 minutes a day or longer out in the garden, but on a regular basis, right? This is the kind of stuff you're just doing a little bit each day, but of all these different activities, but you just don't let it build up to one special day. You just adopt this more of a lifestyle, and you like being out in the garden. This is why we do it, right?
Exactly. I'm kind of assuming that that's why you're looking at a gardening book, is you like to garden or you want to garden. So here's a way to do it that might be a little more in step with your lifestyle.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Wonderful. Charlie, awesome again too. This book, The Continuous Vegetable Garden, everybody. Like I said, we've got links down below to Charlie's website and a link that you can find a copy of The Continuous Vegetable Gardening. And maybe before we let you go here, though, too, you can kind of tell us a little bit about some of your other books, some of your other offerings, and some things like that as well, too. So,
well, first of all, I want to appreciate you guys, because you read the book.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
A lot of these interviews.
You get a lot.
And it's clear who's read the book and who's just like kind of looked at the
table of contents. All those marks. I didn't even get to half of the things I wanted to talk about.
Well, it makes for a much more interesting conversation, I think, for the audience too, to have you ask questions and talk about specifics. So I appreciate that.
Thank
you. I have a book on foodscaping or edible landscaping that's been out there for a number of years. That was inspired by Roz Creasy in California. Of course, I consider her the queen of edible landscaping. She's the one who really pushed it many years ago. And I have a book on, as I mentioned earlier, no-dig gardening. And that's been out there. And if you're really interested in that and you're really want to get into it, really want to dig into it.
No dig.
Wait, I'm usually the one who makes the puns around here.
That's right. Charles Dowding in England. He is like Mr. No Dig Gardening.
Yeah. He's been a guest on our show before too.
Okay. He's
exactly
great. Yeah. So there's more books out there, and you can go to my website, gardeningwithcharlie.com, and I have a whole section on the books and how you can purchase them.
Okay, so that website is just, again, gardeningwithcharlie.com.
.com, right. And I also have webinars on a lot of these subjects too. The foodscaping, no-dig gardening, continuous vegetable gardening, which you can buy. You can purchase the webinar that was done and recorded. So you can get the information that way as well.
And you dropped this as a little teaser, but I got to know just a little more about this. When's the next trip to Europe with Charlie Nardozzi?
Well, I'm going to Portugal in October.
Ooh.
Yeah, the island of Madeira, actually.
Oh.
We'll spend most of the time there. And then in the spring, we're going to Sicily. We talked about a little bit about Sicily. Yeah.
And these are garden-based, gardener-focused trips.
Exactly. These are trips that are focused on gardens. So we go to public gardens and private gardens. We go to Italy, though. You got to do stuff about food. We'll do a cooking class. We'll go to some wineries. I mean, you got to do that stuff. So it's a cultural thing as well.
Okay, we're going to be looking at your website on that. Enoch and I, you never know if you're going to be interviewed in Sicily. We just might pop up.
There you are.
I'm telling you, oh man, I've been dreaming of doing a trip like that. It would just be so amazing.
It's absolutely.
And I bet with having you as a guide, it would just be absolutely spectacular. Charlie, this has been just a great interview. I mean, you really showed up today with a spectacular book. Like I said, I just really loved reading this over the last month, featuring this for our show. And we definitely hope to have you back again sometime, maybe talk about some other subjects and some things like that too, as well, too.
Because I'd love to do that
today.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
Conversation today, and just a great contribution to the garden world. You know, it's really
thank you very much.
Sharing all this experience, you've concentrated it in your own life. You've tried a lot of things. You've gotten educated on horticulture, and now you're bringing it to us through these books. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely, Charlie. Thank you so much again, everybody. Links down below in the description. Get yourself a copy of the Continuous Vegetable Garden by Charlie Nardozzi. Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thanks, Charlie. What a pleasure.
Okay, thanks.
All right, everybody. We'll be right back. One moment. Finish this all up. Thank you, guys. Hey, gardeners. Thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right, there we go.
I'm already on the website. I'm on the Gardening with Charlie website.
There you go.
I'm looking for the trip details.
Oh, that's wonderful. Get us all set up, Mark. Gosh, wouldn't it be so fun?
This sounds so great. You know, because I know like people like Cisco go and all these landscape designer people go, which is fine. And they go to all these beautiful gardens and it's wonderful. But to go to food gardens and to meet other food gardeners and growers and then to have feasts that have some of that local food, it's like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like we should both be on that. I don't know how we're going to do that. But
we had Gardener Scott on yesterday, and he was talking about one of his trips because he hasn't been on the last couple of months because he's been taking a lot of trips, and he went to Croatia and did some visiting of some villages and checking out some of these old family, like long-standing generational family gardens and all those built into their culture and those sort of things. And it just, to me, that would be just such a fantastic thing to be able to do. A whole show on just like, you know, and I mentioned yesterday, I've dreamed about this idea of like a Anthony Bourdain style travel the world and look at food gardens and how those interconnect with family and culture and stuff. Just be absolutely amazing.
A fella can dream, right? A fella can
dream. I know. Come on, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. But again, what a great book. Awesome book. The Continuous Vegetable Garden. Just great. Absolutely. Like I said, get down below in the description. Get yourself a copy of this. You know, like I say, we always say, you know, all of our books are must-have garden books, especially after we get in and read them like that. And this is definitely one of those ones for sure. You definitely got to have in your library for sure.
I mean, this is 100% serious. I am touching those garden book club books often. I'm loaning them out to friends. I loaned out Gardener Scott's on raised bed gardening. I've got the edible landscape book out to somebody that I'm working with. I just brought the Garlic Companion book.
What a beautiful book.
Down for a recipe here. It just, we get good books and it's not a one and done. This is like, these are things you go back to and that you want to reference, that the ideas are so dense packed in there. 1 hour is not going to do it. While we're reading, you're going to be going back to these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we do.
It's an investment for the future. Your future gardener self will thank you for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also everybody too, again, this is usually the part of the show where we announce next month's book, but
let's go to the book.
Keep an eye out. Hopefully this week, and by next week, I'll give you guys an announcement for next month's gardening book and all of that. We're still kind of working one out right now, so hopefully that'll come together for this next month. Whereas we want to focus our Septembers to kind of a back to school kind of theme. So we're kind of looking for some children books, some kids books, and authors and things like that to discuss. And we've got a couple out there that we're looking for and everything too. So hopefully I'll get that announced this next week.
Well, Enoch, to your credit, I want everyone to know that you are like a juggler, and the polished, smooth interview that happens during the course of the program is only a portion of what you're doing. I mean, we threw out some ideas for books, but then you have to track down the author. You have to try to get them to agree to a date. You are doing so much behind the scenes that nobody realizes. So we have these occasional little blips where we don't have a book selected already, but it's just a miracle that most months we already do, because you've done so much legwork in the background, and there's always things that happen, and sometimes just a little thing will fall through because it's like, oh wait, nobody replied to me, or they said yes, but now they can't do it, or I never tracked them down to the right email address. There's so much in the background.
There's a lot that goes into it for sure. But definitely, and again too, I really appreciate that, and I appreciate all of you too out there who tune in with us each and every weekend to enjoy these conversations. It makes the work worth it for sure.
How about the replay people too? They're there.
Absolutely, yes,
yeah.
Definitely, big huge shout out to all of our replay watchers. Yes, definitely.
Replay, yeah.
That's exactly right. That's right. We definitely got, especially if you're here with us still at this part of the show and everything. But again, and just another amazing book club this month. They're just really hitting it out of the park when it comes to our book club selections, and just another one this month for sure.
And to meet these great people, like Charlie's such a lively conversationalist. It's one thing to say somebody's an expert, but I've heard a lot of dull experts. Right.
Right.
They go on, and you're kind of like, okay, they really know a lot, but it's kind of overwhelming, or it's not put in a way. So, you could hear even the way he was styling it and the way he was thinking about it. He's like, I'm going to weave in all these techniques and things that are very advanced, but I'm going to do it in such a way that people aren't going to pull back from it and think I can't do that. It's like very accessible. That just seems to be his style and personality as well. It's like, keep it accessible, get people excited. Don't overload them. It's like realism. Like, we're targeting the people who want to go out and get the cherry tomatoes for dinner. We're not like the ones who are going to can their entire year's supply of food. There's not that many of us.
Yeah.
So I love how he brought just so much realism and so much practicality to the talk.
Right on. Yes, just absolutely great interview today. I do want to mention to everybody before we finish up, we're going to be heading out here in just 1 minute, but I mentioned this just a little bit earlier. We got Cisco Morris joining us next Saturday. Yes, that's right. You definitely don't want to miss out on this conversation next Saturday with Cisco Morris. Going to be some great stories, some really funny, awesome garden stories. And so definitely come and join with us next Saturday for the show. And come and join us also for next week's Sunday edition. And really great to have all of you here with us today. Thank you so much for being here. And if you can, before you head out today, let's go ahead and click that thumbs up. Hit the likes, the subscribe, bell notification. Definitely make sure you're sharing with all of your garden friends out there, letting them know that we've got our Let's Get Growing show every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And various time zones throughout the world. I did see we had someone from Tasmania today in the chat as well. So, worldwide, Let's Get Growing show. So again, everybody, thank you for being here, and really look forward to seeing you all next week for our show with Cisco Morris. And we'll see all of you then.
Thank you, guys.
take the run. See you on the flippy flops.